President Donald Trump has targeted since taking office. Last week, the White House issued an executive order completely cutting off financial assistance to the country. CBS News foreign correspondent Deborah Patta has the latest on this from Johannesburg.
President Trump's decision to cut off aid to South Africa and offer white Afrikaans farmers asylum is based on what many in this country say is a false narrative. The reality is far removed from Trump's executive order, which followed a post on social media by the president stating that South Africa was treating certain classes of people very badly and expropriating land without compensation. Afrikaans writer Pete Crocombe told CBS News that white South Africans have benefited more from democracy than any other group in this country. If you're white, he says, this is still the land of milk and honey. One of the largest agricultural organizations in the country has also publicly stated that no land has been expropriated in South Africa without compensation in the 31 years since the country's first all-race election. South African legislation allows the government to expropriate unused land for public use for fair compensation, which has raised criticism among some opposition parties. And the group most affected by the withdrawal of US funds will be the 8 million people living with HIV in South Africa. Trump's order stops hundreds of millions of dollars a year that the US gives to help with the country's HIV/AIDS response. Back to you.
Deborah Patta in Johannesburg. Thanks.
I'm just really upset about something, and I want to delve into it real quick. Again, I know this isn't sports. I know some of you come here for sports. I respect that. But earlier today, a group of 50 white South Africans landed at Dulles International Airport as refugees. And they were welcomed into the United States under a humanitarian designation meant for those men and women fleeing war or persecution. And Trump has suspended this for all other groups everywhere in the world. And almost all of those other groups, or a huge majority, are people of color. And Donald Trump has allowed these 50 white South Africans into the United States because he says that there's a genocide in South Africa. And that is just actually not true. Trump said farmers are being killed. They happen to be white, but whether they're white or black, it makes no difference to me. And at the same time, you're watching people all over this country being round up. People almost exclusively who are of color being rounded up by ICE, taken into facilities, exported. But white people are being brought in from South Africa under the false pretense of they're facing this life or death discrimination. It is so fucked up. Like, it is so fucked up. If you don't think these people are racist, please understand this. No brown people are allowed in this country. We are not taking any refugees who happen to be brown. But these 50 white people from South Africa can come in. These 50 white people with their families and their history of apartheid can come in. We need to help the white people of South Africa, and we are allowing them into America. Think how fucking deranged that is. I'm being serious. Even if you're a Republican, even if you're pro low taxes, think how fucking deranged that is, that there are people in the Trump administration believe that the optics and the politics of this, what we need to do are save the white South Africans. And if you're like, this is great, this is so awesome, blah, 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 like, something is wrong with you. Like, something is actually wrong with you. This is the most racist, sinister shit I've seen done in the open by a politician in years. There's been racist, sinister shit done by both parties through the years. This is just, look, we're racist. Look, we're going to let the white people in, but no brown people in. But the white people, come on in. We want to save you. That's what this is. And if you're not paying attention, just Google it. Google South Africa and Trump. Google South Africa and white and America right now. I'm not exaggerating what's going on. It is fucked up and absolutely crazy and disgusting and disturbing, but on brand with this monster and his minions.
This is the book of Psalm, chapter 73, starting in verse 5. And it reads, "They are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men. Therefore pride compasseth them about as a chain, violence covered them as a garment. Their eyes stand out with fatness, they have more than heart could wish. They are corrupt and speak wickedly. Concerning oppression, they speak loftily." Proverbs 11:9. and hypocrite with his mouth destroyeth his neighbor. But through knowledge shall the just be delivered. First and foremost, as always, in Allah Shran Kadash, being the holy tongue, being the ancient Hebrew, the Paleo Hebrew, which is the ancient Hebrew. I'm going to give all praises, glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom is the God of the living, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Baruch, which is all praise to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, in the name of his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, whom was our strength and our Redeemer, and our light and our salvation. In the same tongue, I'm going to utter Mashana Kabawadium Lahasaquanium, Shal Gadabarakab, meaning double honors to the apostles and elder bishops, great millstone, and Shalom, honor salutation to Bayashid Awada, meaning the house of David, referring to the 144,000 elected governing body of the house of David, along with the rest of the 1/3 elect men and women and children of Israel. All right. His fellow servant Malak Rayab Shpak had to give him another lesson through the spirit of prophecy, being a testimony of our Lord and Savior, Hamashak Habashai, who the masters of the world ignorantly refers to Jesus Christ. And this is for to expound on the information that was brought out, through those those first two videos, going into DJT, all right, Nero Caesar reincarnated, all right, allowing a minimum of at least 50, so-called white South African refugees from Johannesburg, South Africa, specifically, into America, Babylon the Great, despite shunning, all right, a multitude of so-called black and brown refugees of these various countries, all right, in Central America, South America, Haiti, and, various areas within the Caribbean, mainly and ironically consisting of so-called black and brown people of the southern and northern kingdoms of Israel. But yet he has willingly, welcomed these 50 quote unquote white South African refugees with open arms. All right. With no pushback. Okay. In a political sense, because this is this devil's way of further, showcasing whom he's supporting and who he is not supporting, who he is advocating public support for, and who he is not publicly advocating support for. So the individual said in that last video that was played, this is a way that Esau Edom, the subclite white man, the devil the Bible speaks of, is further, professing, another way in which he is, professing his hatred towards a specific targeted demographic of people. And there's always been the same people that this beast system, all right, the horde that sits upon many waters, America, Babylon the Great, has always been created against. For this system is not broken. It was created and developed for the very intention it was created for, and that was to serve as a prison, for the people that these devils have always feared. Okay, so this is bring us some information here on this article. I'm gonna segue over to this last article and play another video. So I filter all this information to biblical prophecy. This is for to showcase that we're in a time of civil war for it intensifying. It's just prophesied. All right, St. Matthew the 24th chapter, and and so forth. So Isaiah 19 and 17. All right, and so forth. So this is an article, CBS News article entitled "First Group of So-Called White South Africans Granted Refuge Status to Party West." All right, because to further expound on my point, he has allowed 50 so-called white South Africans into the U.S. with open arms, despite the fact that he's done a lot. He's done a lot. Within the little over 100 days he's been in office. All right, in terms of targeting, Jake. Okay, so-called black and brown people, specifically of the southern, of the nation of Israel. Okay, under the guise of politics, such as using politics, another satanic weapon, to justify his hatred towards us, such as revoking legal status for thousands of so-called migrants, okay, under the Alien Enemies Act as of recently, okay, affecting both kingdoms, southern and northern kingdoms, so-called blacks and indigenous people stemming from these lands, coming from these lands. Then he also ended up, abruptly ending, these Customs of Border Patrol appointments in a particular app, which resulted in 200 migrants refusing to leave, further, going into, was a further omen or precursor of the Civil War that's further intensifying, because Jake has had enough of this damn devil. And this is why Robert Hinton Jr., I believe his name is, put to death, all right, that I believe is an Edomite cop, okay, shortly after his son got put to death, okay? But, so this devil's done a lot in terms of politically targeting our people, politically oppressing and afflicting our people, all right, by targeting them politically through these immoral decrees and such, such as the executive order that he signed to make English the official language of the U.S. Okay, which further confirms that these devils bringing in these 50 so-called white South Africans into America while shunning, so-called black and brown migrants / immigrants is of demented, sadistic and nefarious purposes. All right, to further showcase his hatred for our people. All right, because just as I mentioned, for example, right, how DJT signed an executive order looking to make Spanish, the main language, the official language of the U.S. They did something similar in the 1960s, where there was they were using their public education system to persecute the Spanish-speaking Jakes if they publicly spoke Spanish in those classrooms in Esau's scholastic indoctrination systems. They call school systems, all right, which led to a protest in 1968 known as the East LA Walkouts, also referred to as the Chicano Blowouts, all right, where so-called Mexican American communities of the tribe of Issachar, were protesting against this oppression, against the discrimination and substandard conditions, all right, including rundown schools, and ultimately being oppressed, for speaking a language that they were indoctrinated to speak by this devil, man. All right. So on top of that, he had also signed. He also had given the Pentagon jurisdiction over the southern border, looking to militarize the border, to transition it over, from federal jurisdiction of the Customs and Border Patrol agents under the Department of Homeland Security, over to full-fledged military surveillance over the border, man. And that's further going into the prophecy of Jacob's trouble in Jeremiah 30:7. Okay, a time of the greatest trouble ever known, ever experienced in this earth. It's prophesied in Daniel 12:1 that the descendants of Jacob would have to go through. All right. So it says here on this CBS News article, first group of so-called white South Africans granted refugee status to parts of U.S. The first group of so-called white South Africans were granted refugee status by the U.S. is set to fly out of Johannesburg on Sunday, officials said. The flight from Johannesburg OR Tambo Airport was set to depart around 2 p.m. Eastern, en route to Dakar for refueling before flying to Washington, D.C. The group includes 49 Afrikaner South Africans made up of mainly families as well as a few young couples in their 20s and older people. All right, so with that, here's the point here. It says in February, President DJT issued an executive order directing officials to use the U.S. refugee program to resettle Afrikaners, quote unquote, who were in an ethnic group in South Africa made of descendants of European colonists. And I really don't have to say too much more, but just to further expound on that point, you had the 13 colonists that were looking to divide the spoils of the indigenous people, okay, of the land they stole from the indigenous people, and this is why they, around that time, around the 19th century, they around the Mexican Revolution, they developed this other moral decree known as the Guadalupe Hidalgo Treaty to take the landmass of Mexico, New Mexico, that was once a part, that once included Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, into different territories. And this is what Esau does. He divides and conquers, okay, including setting up borders, Now, ironically, there was a funny post that I seen. You know, where somebody has said, I'm gonna play it real quick. Yeah, so they should have built a wall fighting illegal immigration since 1492, when the authentic illegal immigrants and migrants, as in these Edomites, self-proclaimed Caucasians, all right, you know, the modern day Europeans, quote unquote, came over here, okay, and stole this land from the true founding fathers of the indigenous people, all right, of the northern kingdom of Israel. But yet, these people that he has labeled migrants, immigrants, as in our people, has been coined, these certain terms to further keep that negative stigma on our people, as it lines up with the curse in Deuteronomy 28 and 37. So this is Job 21 and 9 in the NIV. In NLT, Salakia, it says, their homes are safe from every fear, and the Most High God, Yahweh, by Shem Yashai, does not punish them. Why? Because these Edomites are not under the curses. As it says in Amos, the 3rd chapter. It says, we are the only, man, let me get it real quick. Amos 3 and 1. Hear this word that the Lord, Yahweh, by Shem Yashai, has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which are brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities. Okay, and those curses were a major part of our punishment. That's the epitome of our punishment, in Deuteronomy 28, verses 15 all the way down to the end of the chapter, including the very last verse in that chapter, going into the prophecy of our slavery, in which you Edomites never endured anything like that. You were packed on slave ships like sardines and being forced to defecate on each other. Okay, producing pestilence and disease. Okay, producing death from that. And having to be thrown off the ship because so many of us were dying by way of that ill treatment. Okay, being whipped and bludgeoned on the ships to where them sharks can smell the strong stench of blood from the oppression, affliction that came from the hands of you devils. Okay, in the midst of being transported across the four corners of the earth, being dropped off in the Caribbean, being transported, throughout the transatlantic. Ending up in the States, in America. Okay, it started in 1492 up until the 17th century, in which we continue to be, in which up until this day we're still slaves. All right, so because Jake still thinks collectively, thinks they're free because Abe Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation and removing the chattel chains from us. Okay, and the yokes of iron, from around our neck and chains from off of our bodies. But with those chains on our minds through the system, including this through the Social Security, act, the FDR was used to sign as a part of that deception to make us believe that they were free. Okay, so these devils can continue to benefit off of our ignorance. This is why they're throwing this shit in our face. This is, including why Trump did what he did. Because the majority of Jake is not paying attention to what the devil is doing because they're not spiritual minded. Okay. So this is why we're getting punished for our wrongdoings. This is part of our punishment, being made a spectacle, and a gazing stock and a laughing stock, such as being referred to as these terms of belittlement and shame, such as migrant, immigrant, spick, beaner, Mexican, Latino, Hispanic, indigenous, Indian meaning savage, Negro, Shiner, African American, nigger, black, all right, Puerto Rican, spook, you name it. This magnitude of oppression, affliction is prophesied in Daniel 9, verse 11 to 12. The greatest magnitude of oppression anybody under the sun has ever endured pertains to our people. And this is how we're able to further identify who we are through prophecy. This is why we're getting punished. And these devils are not getting punished. They're just out here operating willy-nilly, doing whatever the fuck they want to do. Okay? Through their demented, bugged out, nefarious, sadistic, tactics of oppressing and afflicting us, man. Knowing that the majority of our people are not going to be privy to this devil's satanic devices to further press and afflict them in the first place. All right. This is Amos 3:2. You only have I known of all the families of the earth, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. So let's go back to Job 21:9 and read that again in NLT. And it says, their homes are safe from every fear, and the Most High God, Yahweh by Shemeshai, does not punish them. This is verse 10, NLT. Their bulls never fail to breed. Their cows bear calves and never miscarry. All right, these devils are, they continue to be in abundance. Verse 11 in NLT. They let their children frisk about like lambs. Their little ones skip and dance. Meaning what? They're out here, navigating willy nilly. Okay, running amok. They're like these Karens and these young harlot Shedemite demons in Esau's college universities getting trained around on them and shit. Okay. But then these sororities, these college sororities and whatnot. Okay. All right. Out here, just being complete perverse brute beasts, terrorizing the public, contaminating the earth with their filth. All right. Through their satanic devices, through their politics, through their wickedness. Okay. Within other facets of their wicked rulership. All right. Through their propaganda, spreading these false narratives to further support their satanic NWO. All right. Promoting whoredom through the pornography industry that's ran by Amalek, the Zionist international crime banking families. All right. The chief family of the Edomite nation, including OnlyFans. Okay. Just overall promoting perverseness out here and complete debauchery and madness, which has been sensationalized to be normal. And this is further how Esau drinks an iniquity like waters, it says in the book of Job, the 15th chapter. So this is why in the verse 9, it said it, said that their homes are safe in fear, and Yahweh by Shemeshai does not punish them because the earth was given into their hands. This is verse. That was actually it. So with that, I'm segue over to Deuteronomy 28:32, and it says, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given into another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. Okay. It's for that, and that pertains to our people. Okay. The only demographic of people, as in the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, who do not have a military to claim as their own. This is why Jake was forming gangs to protect themselves from Esau until Esau corrupted that. Okay. All right. The only demographic of people, without a government of their own. Okay. Even in a so-called, I believe there's a Jake, a so-called Negro as the head of I believe it's called the Black Farmers Association or something like that. And around the height of the C to the V to the 19, about 5 years ago, he was begging Esau, to ease up on the financial affliction against his farming business. So that further confirms that, as it says, the curse goes in this chapter. Curses shall you be when you go out. Curses shall you be when you go when you come in. Roughly paraphrasing. No, I said that backwards, I'm sure, but yep. Verse 19. Curses shall thou be when thou comest in, and curses shall thou be when thou goest out. So wherever we go, these curses follow us. All right, including our sons and our daughters being given to another people. It says here in verse 32. And our eyes longing and failing for them all the day long, because we have no might in our hand to truly protect our children. That's why the Elder Yashirama has been saying for some time now, really in Esau's system, we're not even men, we're like boys. It doesn't get no more degrading than that, man. Okay. And this is why these people, including these women that are joint heirs to Esau's rulership, okay, further contributing to that oppression and that affliction, to further, to further add on to, which further includes that that reproach Okay, and of us being considered and perceived as a laughing stock and engaging stock, clowns. That's how people look at us because of the curses. So that's why we're the most vulnerable people on the earth. Why? Because we're one of the curses. That's why they can do whatever the hell they want to do with us, man. Okay, as much as Yahweh B'Shem Shai allows. So this is Deuteronomy 28 and 41. It says, "Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity." Including these Northern Kingdom jakes being thrown in these migrant detention facilities and receiving all manners of experiencing all manners of ill treatment. When they're talking about building another migrant detention facility, somewhere between Central and East Side El Paso. So this further identifies who we are. Okay. The forlorn, the children of the oppressed, speaks about in Judith 9:11. So this is Psalm 28 and 3. It says, "Draw me not away with the wicked and with the workers of iniquity, which speak peace to their neighbors, but mischief is in their hearts." Okay. And such as 40 acres and a mule. What happened to that shit? You niggas are free after 1865. Just to have explosives dropped on Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921 in the midst of an emerging so-called black civilization during so-called Black Wall Street, and we weren't bothering these devils. We got to see them compromising us then in a financial sense. It's just further foreshadowing of how they've always looked to destroy us because they fear us. If we were insignificant as they claim, they wouldn't have to intervene in all of our affairs. They would just let us be. But they know that we're better than them. We're physically stronger than them. We're more intuitive than them. We're more innovative than them. Okay? We're more charismatic than them. They need us to thrive. A perfect example of that is these sports organizations, because we're the salt of the earth, and especially in music. You know what I'm saying? And that's why they've infiltrated us in that aspect. That's why Prince said change his name to the symbol. Okay, because he's further airing out Esau dirty laundry in terms of how they exploit talented artists, especially young talented artists that sign these record deals instead of distribution deals. So every which way this devil has conspired to exploit us financially, all right, especially financially, as it aligns with the curse, Deuteronomy 28 and 48 to 49. All right, how we'd have to seek these devils in want of all things, including food, water, and raiment. Okay, so we're not ignorant of these devil devices. The only ones that are going to continue to be drawn away, all right, within the device of these devils are the 2/3 of our people. Psalm 28 and 3, "Draw me not away with the wicked and with the workers of iniquity, which speak peace to their neighbors, but mischief is in their hearts." It says, and once again, it's Proverbs 11 and 9, and it says, "An hypocrite with his mouth destroyeth his neighbor, but through knowledge shall the just be delivered." Okay, so let me get this straight. So-called black and brown, so-called migrants, immigrants, as they have been coined, can go through asylum legally and then still get oppressed unjustifiably, like Trump, ending that Customs and Border Patrol program through the app, ending those scheduled deployments through that app, that Customs and Border Patrol app, unjustifiably, going out of his way to oppress our people and afflict our people. Then they had the audacity to wonder why, Esau, on the lower echelon sense anyway, had the audacity to wonder why 200 migrants, quote unquote, refused to leave. Because Jake is tired of these devils, man. Okay. Then once again, he revoked the legal status for thousands of so-called migrants under the Alien Enemies Act. Obviously, that notion, okay, those measures did not pertain to them 50 so-called white South Africans, okay, being granted refuge into America, Babylon the Great. So it's clear who he's targeting, man. But see, this pursuit of war is still going to go over the head of Jake, the majority of our people, the 2/3 specifically. because they were not blessed with the eyesight to see what's going on. To know that they're living in a time of war. We are living in a time of war. All right. While the devil continues to be exposed as a hypocrite and a scoundrel and a tyrant, and ultimately the devil. All right. This is Job 15:34. It says, "For the congregation of hypocrites shall be desolate, and fire shall consume the tabernacles of bribery." All right, through this thermonuclear fire. All right, this ICBM missile fire. In the words of the beloved elder Uriah out there in Chi-Town, man. Okay. You know what I'm saying? That thermonuclear fire of a projected 1,000,000 degrees in radiation is going to baptize America, Babylon the Great. As it says in Jeremiah 51, all right, around the 7th verse, we would have healed Babylon, but she can't be healed. This place is too corrupt, too perverse and wicked to be healed, especially being saturated in the blood of the saints, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians. Okay. This is Job 15:35. "They conceive mischief and bring forth vanity, and their belly prepared deceit." This is how Esau's hypocrisy is further exposing him. All right, let's get this quick precept. Jonah 2:8. It says, "They that observe lying vanities forsake their own mercy." In regards to you, 2/3 Israelites, you're sacrificing your own mercy from the Lord Yahweh by Shemashai. By seeking the ruler's favor, the rulers of the darkness of this world, the throne of iniquity. All right, the wicked Zionist international crime banking family, just because they have global influence in all facets of life. You're going to die a very egregious and miserable death. This is prophesied in 2nd Esdras, the 9th chapter. Okay. For lacking integrity, being spineless, and choosing to die on your knees, or to live on your knees instead of dying on your feet. Okay. Man, but not acknowledging that this devil, Esau, Edom, and self-declared white man has always been our arch nemesis. Because it was prophesied to be that way. As we know, that's why Sirach 12:10 it says, "Never trust thine enemy, as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness." So this is Isaiah 10:1. It says, "Woe unto them that decree and righteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed." Okay, such as these corrupt, hypocritical asylum laws and immigration laws. Okay, to force Jake to go out of their way just to possibly have an opportunity to enter into a so-called country that was stolen from their ancestors. But meanwhile, they're allowing 50 so-called white South African refugees to come into America willy-nilly with no resistance. Okay. No pushback. No obstacles. See, Jake is gonna have to learn the hard way. Okay, that Esau is a devil. All right, and he's being further exposed by his vile, profane nature and his satanic devices, including his politics. This is Isaiah 10:2. To turn aside, verse 1 again. "Woe unto them that decree and righteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed. To turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless." So we get this last article here. All right. Entitled, it's on Rolling Stone, entitled, "Trump to bring white South Africans, quote unquote, as refugees to U.S. while cutting everyone else out. Amid a widespread crackdown on immigration and refugee programs, the Trump administration is slated to bring white, quote unquote, white South Africans to the U.S. as refugees on Monday. Multiple news outlets reported, all right, and this is past Monday, or yesterday, they will now have a pathway to American citizenship. All right. Let's go ahead and jump down. The U.S. will give about 50, quote unquote, white South Africans help with housing, groceries, and other needs. It says, according to a document reviewed by the Associated Press, the Trump administration could admit as many as 1,000 Afrikaners this year. They'll be reaching emergency support from the Federal Office of Refugee Resettlement, which is a division of the Department of Health and Human Services. All right, so there you have it. This is Psalm 144. Meanwhile, they're giving them housing, but Jacob's been throwing these smelly ass migrant detention facilities like animals. All right. Under the guise of gang affiliation and slash cartel affiliation, they're further justifying and keeping our people under that negative stigma to further justify that ill treatment that they give our people, man. Because our people got to learn. And the majority of our people are going to have to learn the hard way. Because they're suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. This is Psalm 144. Matter for me at the comment board real quick. The water. Shalom to Akim. Tuning in. The water for the precepts. All right. Shalom. Beloved brother Damawati out there. GMS Orlando. GMS in his likeness. My brother Yao Shop. GMS Hopeful Elect. 777. All right. My brother Mariah out there in San Antonio. Yao Bashim Shabrak Adam to Akim tuning in. Gonna grab a couple of these before I gotta, clock back into the plantation. This is Proverbs. Our brother Damawati put up Proverbs 28:15. As a roaring lion and a raging bear, so is a wicked ruler over the poor people. And that's what Esau is, like a raging bear, a raging beast, an untamable raging beast. Okay? That's why, over our people. That's why the only one that could take the devil down is Yahweh Shai. Because he's gone out of control, man. All right? So, I'll go ahead and end it off on that for the sake of time. Psalm 144:7. Send me thine hand from above, rid me and deliver me out of great waters from the hand of strange children. Ain't no what the demographic of people is stranger than these goddamn Edomites, man. That love perverseness, that love weird shit. All right, such as the PDF file activity. All right, prevalent in Roman Catholicism and so forth. This is Psalm 144:8. Whose mouth speaketh vanity, and their right hand is a right hand of falsehood. You see that? Everything about these devils is false. Why? Because there's no, as it says in Hebrews 12:16, there's not one more profane than Esau Edom. And that's further showcasing these last days. This is jump down to verse 11, Psalm 144:11. Says, rid me and deliver me from the hand of strange children, whose mouth speaketh vanity, and their right hand is a right hand of falsehood. Okay? And that's Esau Edom to a T. We need deliverance from this devil. End it off in verse 15. Happy is that people. All right. Happy is that people that in such a case, yea, happy is that people whose power is the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashim Yeshai. Because that's our only source of hope, where our hope lies, man. Because we are the prisoners of hope, as it says in Zechariah 9:12. All right. We know that everything written aforetime was written for our learning. That way, through the patience and comfort of scriptures, we may have hope that we one day will be delivered out of this hell. Case in point. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it off on that note. All right. Pray this lesson was further edifying, exhorting to elect, and give all praises, glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who is the God of the living, Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, Baruch Rash. All right. Once again, double honors to the apostles and elder bishops, great millstone, for teaching, ruling well, and shalom. Honors, salutation to Bayashad Abadah, meaning the house of David, referring to the 144,000 elect governing body of the 1/3 elect remnant of the nation of Israel, along with the rest of the 1/3 elect men, women, and children of Israel. Once again, the water to beloved Aki for tuning in, all of your skillful adding through the precepts, and Baba Ball soon, very soon. All right, and on to the next one. Yahweh Shem Shabrak Atam.